And now we're going to have a look at what's grabbing the headlines around the world in the newspapers. Solange Mougin is back with us to talk about it. Solange, you're starting off in Syria, aren't you, today? Government forces advancing in Idlib province.
They are, and as they advance, hundreds of thousands of Syrians are fleeing the bombings. As the French paper La Croix tells us, of unimaginable suffering there. They say that some 350,000 civilians have fled north along the border with Turkey into an area that's turned into what they call a sort of Gaza Strip. The paper says that many of the displaced have lost hope that any country, be it Turkey, the regime, or any other country in the world, come to their aid. Now, life in Syria, in northern Syria in particular, is also the focus of a report today in Libération. The French paper takes us to a prison holding some 5,000 Islamic State prisoners. A caliphate in a cage is how they describe this school turned makeshift holding pen that houses not only fighters, but also thousands of women and children. As the world tries to figure out what to do with these prisoners, Libération says that experts continue to say that the best thing to do would be to repatriate those that are foreigners, but politicians abroad continue to sort of side with public opinion, which is largely against it.
Now, jihadist terrorism also roaring its head in Burkina Faso this past weekend. The government there announcing yesterday that 39 people were killed in a terrorist attack.
Yeah, Le Pays, the Burkina Faso paper, tells us that this is just another one in a series of attacks by armed militia. The paper wonders what is hiding behind this new strategy of these militant groups. The paper asks if it's purely to hit the area's economies, to amass women in harems, as the women are often not killed in the attacks. And Ouakat Serra, another Burkina Faso paper, laments the killing of these civilians. And they focus on how children are being hit the hardest. And the paper also wonders when the reign of mass terrorists in the Sahel will end and how to get there, be it beefing up the G5 Sahel forces or through negotiating with the terrorist groups, as there are more and more calls to do so.
Well, let's turn to the US for this next story. This is the ongoing coverage of the death of Kobe Bryant. Now, since he was killed in a helicopter crash Sunday, tributes have been rolling in, of course, but many obituaries aren't necessarily telling the full picture of who the basketball star was.
Yeah, they're not all telling the full picture of who he was and the events of his life. And now Mother Jones is discussing this, as are a number of papers today. They're calling out how Bryant's 2003 rape allegations have either been ignored entirely or simply offhandedly referred to in regard to what it did to Kobe Bryant's image. Now, Mother Jones analyzes these obituaries and how the ugly side of Bryant's story is often very buried deep in the articles. Now, this storm over how to pay tribute to a flawed legend began with a tweet in the Washington Post. A reporter tweeted Sunday that, quote, "Any public figure is worth remembering in their totality, both the beloved and the upsetting." Now, she was linking that article to, she linked that tweet to an article about the rape allegations. She was then suspended from the Washington Post. Since then, many journalists at the Post and others have expressed their outrage. The Post yesterday reinstated her. But as the week tells us, the case illustrates the multiple issues that are at play here. The silencing of journalists, a misogyny mob, the journalist herself received some 10,000 abusive threats, but also the silencing of victims' voices by canceling out the bad and the ugly in favor of just the good.
Oh, sorry, Solange, you finished. I got distracted.
That's fine.
I was looking at the internet.
Yeah.
I was looking at the internet. And I gather you've got something that might help me.
You are such a joker. I love it.
What's this next story about, Solange?
This next story is about cyberloafing, or getting distracted by the internet.
Like me.
Yes. As Slate tells us, it may not be a boss's favorite pastime for his or her employees, but it does have benefits, according to Slate. A university study. See, you're a good worker.
That's what it is.
Yeah. A university study has come out to show that cyberloafers are more likely to be happy in their jobs and to stick around. So that means productivity. Okay. And they're also, more importantly, they found to be more efficient workers. So go for that getting distracted on the internet.
You're calling me a loafer.
I am.
Okay, great. Solange Mougin with the papers on France 24.